So today I'm talking about a Kia with the P0456 code, what it is and how you go about fixing it. So what is a Kia P0456 code? Well, it's an evaporative emission control system. Leak detected, very small leak. And what does this mean? Well, modern cars have an EVAP system that helps contain all the gas vapors inside the gas tank, and they get sent back into the engine to get burnt off so they don't escape into the atmosphere. And the onboard computer's seen a leak inside of this. So have to be troubleshooted, know why. And possible causes for this, well, it could be a bad fuel cap, could be an EVAP leak, purge controls valve, vent valve, charcoal canister, fuel tank pressure sensor, and possibly a blown fuse. And so the first thing to do when you get this code is to go check the gas cap, because the gas cap is a part of the EVAP system, and if it's not sealing correctly, it can cause issues. The EVAP system needs to go into a slight vacuum in order to work properly, and if the gas cap's not sealing, then it's not going to be able to do that. So if the gas cap might be good, but go check it out. Be sure it's not cracked, damaged, that the seal inside of there is good, and that it's locking all the way into place. If it does look bad, then you might want to replace it. If you do replace it, be sure to get an OEM original gas cap for your particular Kia, since third-party aftermarket gas caps, sometimes they don't seal correctly. And so, if the gas cap looks good, then there's a few components to go over and to look at. And basically what's going on with the EVAP system is you have a hose that leaves the gas tank so the gas vapors can escape. And the first thing they come to is a thing called the charcoal canister. And this does a few things. Mainly it just holds the gas vapors when the engine's off. And there's a main component on there called the vent valve solenoid, which does certain things like it tests the EVAP system so it'll open and close so the onboard computer can test the system. And then the hoses leave and they go up to the top of the engine, and there's a thing called a purge valve solenoid. And what this does is it opens when the engine's running so the gas vapors can go in and get burnt off. And then it closes when the engine's off so they don't escape. And then the gas vapors go into the engine. And so the first thing to do is go check out this purge valve solenoid. It'll be located up on top of the engine and have like two hoses going to it and a wiring harness. And first thing to do, check out all these hoses real good. Since this is pointing towards a leak, you want to check out all these hoses and be sure that there's no cracks, that they're all connected good and things like this. You can also check out the wiring. Be aware that anything wrong with the wiring, open, short, or anything like that can cause problems. This will also be on a fuse, which would be located inside the engine compartment somewhere that you could check out if you wanted to. But basically, be aware that that can cause an issue. And you can test the purge valve if you wanted to. Be sure that's good. But mainly go and check and be sure that none of these hoses are leaking. And so if that all looks good, the next thing to go and check is going to be the charcoal canister. It'll be located up underneath the vehicle by the gas tank somewhere. And it'll have a few hoses going to it and some electrical connections. And the main thing to look for on this is going to be the vent valve. And this can be located differently. Sometimes they can be separate, but they're usually inside of the same package as the charcoal canister. So for example, here's a 2005 Kia Sedona, and you take the charcoal canister off, and inside the back of it, here's the vent valve, which some hoses going to it and an electrical connection. And the main thing to do is just go check it out. Be sure there's no leaks. You could test this if you wanted to. There's different ways you could test the vent valve. If you have a good OBD2 scan tool, there's usually an option inside of there to click enable or disable, and you can listen for a click. Usually if it clicks, then it means it's working. Not always, but usually if it clicks, then it is working. And so there's some YouTube videos on that if you wanted to, but basically go and check out all these hoses and be sure that they're all connected good going into it and that vent valve's working. And so if you check that all out, you checked out the purge valve, you checked out the charcoal canister, and that all looks good, then very likely there is a leak somewhere inside of one of these lines. There is a fuel tank pressure sensor inside of here that if it goes bad, the onboard computer could get bad data sometimes. So be aware of that. That is an issue sometimes. Although not super common, it can go bad and cause problems. It's located on the fuel pump, which underneath the back seat. It's a small little device. It's pretty easy to replace, just has a harness and a couple of bolts. So be aware of that there is a fuel tank pressure sensor. This is where the computer gets all its data for what's going on inside the system. So if that goes bad, then it can cause issues. But very likely if you checked out all these other components, then there's probably a leak somewhere inside of one of these hoses. And sometimes they can be hard to find. If you took it to a mechanic, what they would do is they'd feed smoke into the system, and then wherever the smoke came out, they would know where the leak's at, and then they would go and fix it. Now, you very likely don't have a smoke machine, but what you can do is just go back through all these hoses again and go from like the gas tank all the way up to the charcoal canister, all the way up to the top of the engine to the purge valve and into the engine, and just double check all these hoses again and be sure that there's none of them are leaking, because those are all the components of the EVAP system. So if you checked them all out and the air hasn't cleared, then very likely there is a leak somewhere inside of one of these hoses. And so that's basically it. I just want to give a real quick brief overview of how you go about fixing a Kia with the P0456 code. If you have anything to add, please comment down below. If you have any questions, ask me and I'll try to answer them. If this video helps you, please click like, please click subscribe, and have a good day.